Shortly after his debate with Richard Spencer, Sargon of Akkad made a video announcing his intention to head a political philosophy/movement called the Liberalist. It was a decision uncharacteristic of Sargon as we have known him for the past several years. As a strict classical liberal, Sargon has been adamant that he only speak for himself and not for others. So when his ideological opponents chartered him as the head of the quote-unquote skeptic community, there must have been some tangible frustration. In fact, Sargon's video was made at a crucial time in the skeptic community. The so-called skeptics who had dominated the political YouTube sphere for several years were now mocked as old news. The crucial point, in my opinion, was the migration of leftists and SJWs away from YouTube. At their heart, skeptics were really anti-SJWs, and when there was less content to produce criticizing social justice warriors, the movement began to wane, and those outside looking in pointed at them and laughed for trying too hard. I think this was true for Sargon as well. When you look at his video output for the past few months, there wasn't anything especially riveting about the selection. There was the usual political talk, but there didn't seem to be any central theme holding them together. The only attention Sargon had gotten was his Twitter ban, which wasn't that big of a deal. There was one video of interest, however, and it was a video Sargon had made with Millennial Woes for his annual Millennial Yule series. This had become a kind of tradition where the two met up for a video every Christmas, and Millennial Woes had done this with multiple people. But this time it was a little different. Sargon seemed interested in talking to Millennial Woes, a prominent alt-writer, about some ideas he had regarding the alt-right. The main idea he wanted to put forth was horseshoe theory, the idea that the far left and far right eventually swing around to the same place, and that the alt-right could work with the SJWs if they made the appropriate adjustments. It was a kind of armchair idea in the classical liberal lounge room, and I got the impression that Millennial Woes didn't know if he was supposed to be taking Sargon seriously. The alt-right, which has been gaining a steady YouTube presence for a while now, totally deconstructed the absurdity of Sargon's idea. Video after video was made announcing the horseshoe theory idea, and convincing arguments were made to show that the whole thing was just kind of silly. In the meantime, there was another interesting development happening. Krauten T, a classical liberal and anti-immigration German YouTuber, was under fire for his attempt to dox members of the alt-right, as well as other YouTubers he just didn't like. Kraut was in the so-called Sargon clique, and was publicly disgraced by thousands of YouTubers for the part he played in uncovering private information on the alt-right. Kraut had been working for months in a private Discord chat to ready arguments to crush the alt-right, their positions on race realism and so on, but ironically he accomplished the exact opposite. Kraut ended up leaving YouTube, and members of the alt-right were seen as potential victims of a guy that they had done nothing toward. Not only that, mainstream YouTube started to warm to members of the alt-right. Millennial Woes, after all, is a likable guy who's open to hearing out any ideas. His video with Sargon looked bad on Sargon because he seemed to be bum-rushed about a strange political idea. Guys like Braving Ruin, who if not alt-right is at least affiliated with the alt-right, did a lot of work to show the screenshots of Kraut and the doxes he was trying to get away with. There's also the Andy Worski channel. Worski had been in YouTube circles a long time, but with the Kraut drama, his channel suddenly came into prominence due to the streaming shows he had, with people arguing with each other about personal issues as well as politics. Worski himself is sort of a likable stoner type of character, but with his newfound success, he nabbed up JF Garapi as a co-host. JF is a charming Quebecois Frenchman who holds an odd mixture of libertarianism and alt-right beliefs, including the belief in an ethno-state. As the channel gained popularity and several debates were put on, JF was getting a reputation as unbeatable. Another sign the alt-right was gaining an intellectual foothold. This was basically the situation leading up to the Sargon-Spencer debate. Sargon was coming off of his Millennial Woes video, as well as having a colleague who disgraced himself by going after the alt-right. I find it hard to believe Richard Spencer didn't see all of this happening and scheduled the debate as an opportunity to embarrass Sargon even more. The end result was a mess. Sargon spent the 3-hour debate hashing in on technical points against Spencer, while Spencer kept emphasizing the spirituality of whiteness. Neither were particularly convincing, but Sargon definitely did not win. I honestly can't do the video justice, so you'll have to watch it yourself. Although Sargon has become an expert in debating social justice, it becomes obvious during the course of the debate that he needed to study more of the alt-right and become even more acquainted with the arguments. He knew of the ideas, but I don't think he had spent an appropriate amount of time thinking about how to counter them. I think Sargon knew that he didn't win, which is why he was prompted to make the liberalist movement. Sargon didn't see his battle with SJWs as over. Although they left YouTube, they still hold a prominent position in media, entertainment, and politics. He was still fighting them, and now the alt-right have finally shown themselves as a legitimate foe in YouTube, which is supposed to be a conservative safe space. So with SJWs to the left and the alt-right to the right, and a skeptic movement in the middle that was quickly dying, Sargon decided to craft his own movement that could effectively fight both of these movements. The liberalists were born. The entertainment section of YouTube hasn't responded kindly. Prominent YouTubers like Mr. Medicare have called the whole thing quote-unquote cringy and have said that Sargon is taking himself too seriously. But Medicare himself was warming to alt-right figures like JF, which is something Sargon could have taken into consideration. The thing is, whether mainstream YouTube wanted to admit it or not, the alt-right was getting a seat at the cool kids table, and I think Sargon was seeing it. And with no intellectual heavyweights to oppose him, let's face it, Andy Worski isn't the kind of guy to bring down the alt-right. The alt-right could quickly take up this corner of YouTube. This is what Sargon wanted to combat, in my opinion. So as we head into 2018, I think the chessboard has been set up regarding the political battles we'll see on YouTube. The alt-right will continue to gain a prominent foothold in YouTube politics, while the liberalists, or classical liberals, will begin studying on how to combat them. As this goes on, the real winners will be the so-called Bloodsports channels like Andy Worski, who only want chaos and confusion. It's an interesting time to be on YouTube, as well as an interesting exercise to clarify your position on these various political ideologies. To the YouTube outsider, this may seem like much ado about nothing, but I think this year will shape the future of YouTube discourse for years to come.